Just as a reminder, you can pop your questions in that Q&A box, and then pop anything you want in that chat box. Drop your LinkedIn profile. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know if this is your first time joining a virtual event with us. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Brad, and we'll get started.
Thank you so much, Cora, and thank you to Greenbook for the opportunity, and to everyone for joining today. What I will probably do is switch my camera off in a moment, but let me just introduce myself. So I've been in the insights, data and analytics industry, I suppose, for over 20 years, and I've really had a great opportunity to work at a number of different companies, ranging from my own one, which focused on marketing consulting, to GfK, and even KPMG management consulting. And now I'm working with Converseon, and we are bringing some really cutting edge things to the market. So today we'll look and see what can you do with social media data with respect to brand tracking and really brand relevance. So I'll switch my camera off and we'll jump right into it. Anything we do, we want to make sure that it's robust, that it's as representative as possible, and certainly for text data and for unstructured data, you need good models that produce reliable results, and this is what our platform does, as well as having a number of different metrics that we monitor continuously around quality. We use that as our foundation, where we then launch into the actual product, which we're going to show today, and just hopefully it gives you some ideas around brand health tracking, which are important and going to become even more important as markets begin to move quicker than they are. So just another shout out for reliable NLP. Twitter has appointed us as one of their partners, and it's really great to work with them because they help us to push the edge and to ensure that what we're doing is of the highest quality. So this is really cool to have a recommendation by them. Now, what we'll look at today is the brand framework approach that we will be taking. We'll have a brief word on decision intelligence. I think that might be new for some of you. You might not be familiar with decision intelligence, but it's really data-driven decision-making 2.0. It's what it should have been and what it could have been, but we learn and the discipline is getting better. And then we will look at a QSR example to tease out and to show really what is going on with this brain framework, what is possible, and hopefully give you some thoughts for your own brands and for your own methods, as well as perhaps enticing you to consider working with us. So what is the challenge and the opportunity today in the branding sphere? We know that price and inflation continues to strip consumers of disposable income. And that is a pressure that none of us want, but it's a reality. This week, we saw a number of rate rises. We also saw some manufacturing data, pre-order data come in saying that orders are lower. So, some commentators are saying perhaps the recession in Europe, for example, has already started. Adding to this pressure is the changing landscape which brands are now playing in. So no longer is it just about the product that you're serving up in a healthy or safe way, which meets certain desired benefits that the consumer wants. You also have a set of values that you need to adhere to. And so the expectations of what you as a brand and as a company are doing is changing rapidly, but also becoming important. So this creates quite a storm for brands. Now, this storm will sink some brands, but it's an opportunity for others to really do well and to become the next generation leaders for their respective categories. Our brand relevance tracker takes a top-down approach. This is the known important attributes, the things that you already know are important for the category and for the brand. But text analytics allows us to add into it a bottom-up approach, the unknown unknowns, to look at it and to say, hey, at the end of the day, what is the consumer speaking about that we are not aware of? What are the emerging trends? Or perhaps what are some of the things that they find important that we've never given much thought to? And so this 360-degree view, top down, bottom up, allows us to understand how we fit with today's consumers, as well as how we will fit with tomorrow's consumers. And this is the important thing. You'll notice I place an emphasis on tomorrow, because in a world that is changing so quickly, we can't only ensure that we're doing well today, we also have to be well prepared for tomorrow. Now, decision intelligence, when brought into a brand solution, enables you to monitor your brand, as most brand health trackers do, but also strategize and react to the market in a way that has never been seen before, because it's tied to revenue and customer loyalty. What do I mean by that? Decision intelligence is about focusing on the data that matters for the decision and anchoring it to sales or other important metrics. So what that means is not all data is created equal. Not all data is useful for solving your problem. If I was to say to you, hey, at the end of the day, we have a consumer score of 4.3 out of 5 for our call center. I really think we should increase the distribution on our product. I think everyone would take a step back and go, what does the call center score have to do with how much we should distribute our product? That doesn't make sense. And so not all data is applicable. And this is where decision intelligence as a discipline comes in. It says to us, think about the data that you're using. Think about the outcome you're trying to achieve and check if this data actually matters. Now, the check is not just a logical one. The check is a statistical and scientific one, where if you are trying to shift revenue, you must be able to prove that the data you're using is related to revenue. If you're trying to shift your NPS score, then the data you're using must be proven to affect or to be drivers of your NPS score. And certainly for brand health tracking, well, if you're trying to improve the health and the relevancy and fit of your brand in a category, make sure that those are the metrics that you're looking at. One important thing just to call out is that decision intelligence is going to play a greater role in the future of business. And the reason why is I had a great privilege of traveling around and meeting many CEOs, CMOs, and CFOs. And by and large, the number one problem that they all experienced was budgeting. How do we choose how the money is spent? And I'm sure we feel that same pain as we do our jobs and try to increase our budgets or try to get budgets for different projects that we feel are important. How do we motivate that to the CEO or CMO, CFO of the organization? And the problem comes in because we are not comparing apples with apples. So marketing may come and say, hey, we've got a new set of ad campaigns, and they score 4.5 out of 5. And the next best set of campaigns are, say, 3.8 out of 5. The managing director or the CEO goes, well, that's great. You've got the best campaign. I'm not sure if I should give you that budget or not. How does that shift or move my sales? What is your estimate on that? Then we have someone from operations come along and say, well, actually, if we make these changes to the call center, then we will improve our NPS score from a 7 to a 7.2. The CEO sits with a decision. Do I back marketing or do I back operations? Do I invest in the call center or do I invest in the advertising? If you're in marketing, the answer is easy. You invest in the advertising. If you're in operations, the answer is easy. It's the call center. Decision intelligence says reduce it all to revenue so that you have a common denominator. Which one is going to help your business the most? It's like saying this. We've increased the consumer view of our menu by 5 points this month. Or if we invest more into improving the view of our meat fee offering through our communication and policies, it'll generate an additional $100 million a quarter. Which one is easier to understand the effect of? Which one is easier to quantify? Well, of course, it's the second one. And that's why decision intelligence is so important. So in any product we have to ensure we bake in decision intelligence, because this is what's going to drive businesses of the future. It's data-driven decision-making 2.0. So now we're going to look at the relevancy framework that we used, and then we'll look at a QSR example today, tomorrow for increasing trends, and then tomorrow for decreasing trends. So the framework, it's a fairly standard framework. We have image attributes, needs, benefits, and that comes together along with price to form a brand relevance diagnostic. In other words, we can understand how well and how relevant our brand is and how it fits into the market. But decision intelligence demands that we have a predictive element to it, that we're thinking about the future. So in other words, what we have to do for each and every one of these spheres is create a future perspective. What is the trend? Where is it going? What's happening on price in the future? What's happening to the benefits sought after? Is a particular benefit increasing or decreasing over time? Is it going to be more important in the future or less? Now we start to look through our brand relevance with this lens of now and tomorrow. And that is really important, because we know that the rate of change within a brand is really slow on our side as manufacturers or service industry. It's slow because it takes time to change people's perspective of our brand. If we want to launch a new flavor, we can't within 2 weeks go out and launch a new flavor. We have 9 months at least, from recent conversations I've had with different manufacturers. That seems to be the cutting edge. Some lead times are 2 years. So if we have a future perspective, this enables us to be better prepared for the future, for when it arrives. And as trends are increasing and as things change in the market, we can position ourselves to be in the right place at the right time with the right offering. And that's really at the heart of this framework. So let's move forward and look at understanding the current reality or the passport factors. And I say the current reality is passport factors. Now that's a slight misnomer and departure from classic brand health tracking theory. Brand health tracking would say, well, you've got attributes which you must have to compete in your category, and then you've got your differentiating attributes for your brand. Well, this paradigm of now and tomorrow says everything that is relevant today is actually just a passport factor of tomorrow, because tomorrow has new things that you need to excel at, has different things that you're going to be identified for. And so today is about really just maintaining and doing what we can. Tomorrow is where we're going to grow our revenue. So let's take a look at what the QSR industry, certainly for these brands across these attributes, need to ensure they have to take advantage and succeed right now. I've put a little heat map on here, a little coding of the orange, and that shows us that universally, if you are in the QSR industry and you don't have good fries, you don't have a business offering. Every single one of them is important. Each of them is positive in some regard to what the consumer is experiencing and reporting back to the market. So if you drop the ball on fries when everyone else is doing well, you probably find you're going to lose out on sales. If we look at another one, for example, we just jump over to breakfast. And plus, by the way, means good offering. The 0 means average offering, and the minus means you've got a negative offering. Consumers are not happy with what they're receiving. So if we look at breakfast, we can see that 3 out of 5 of the QSR restaurant are actually providing a good breakfast offering, with the other 2 average. So that's quite close to being a passport factor. If you're not succeeding currently within the breakfast sphere for QSR, you're probably losing revenue. The same goes for a burger. If you don't have some sort of bread and combination, bread and chicken, bread and meat, bread and meat-free offering, you're probably not doing too well. Meat-free coming on, but not a passport factor just yet, because not enough players are doing well in it, and there's not enough resonance taking place. So we can see very quickly how we're performing today, how relevant we are given the category and the competitive set. Something I want to highlight is convenience. None of them seem to be doing particularly well on convenience. So this is a snapshot of today. And of course, you have a lot more detailed metrics than this, trended over time, but we don't have the time to dive into all of that. So today, with attributes. Now, tomorrow. And remember, each of these attributes is defined from our framework either top-down or bottom-up. So it's either important from a conceptual point of view for the category, or it's important to the actual consumer because they've been voicing it on social media. We've then decoded that and trended it over time. What we're looking at here are all the positive category trends. So convenience, taste, burgers, meat-free, and cost are all increasing trends within QSR. Those are all getting stronger year on year. And if you project it forward and use a little bit of time series statistical analysis, you can see that these are going to be important next year and beyond. However, not everyone is doing well. We have the brand trend. So KFC's meat-free, for example, is growing quite rapidly versus Chick-fil-A's convenience, which is actually declining. So we have the brand trend running left to right from decreasing to increasing. And then we have the net sentiment going from negative at the bottom to positive at the top. And that gives us a wonderful view on the brand fit tomorrow. In other words, how is a brand positioned for tomorrow? If we look in the top right-hand quadrant, this is really going to be revenue-winning efforts for 2023 because the underlying category trends have been anchored back to revenue. So it's not just that this trend is increasing in the category, it's that this trend, when anchored to revenue and its effect observed on revenue, is seen to be increasing. Now, through that lens, we're looking at all of these. And so we say Burger King, for example, with their burger offering, is a slightly increasing trend and it's positive. That's great. That's going to generate revenue for Burger King. However, if we contrast it with McDonald's, here you have an increasing trend, but it's below the line. It's negative. There is a growing negative view of McDonald's burger. In the context of having a great burger is more and more important, you can see straight away this is a harmful trend for the brand. Another example of an increasing trend is convenience. We can see that Taco Bell and KFC are doing well with convenience. It's increasing for their brand. More and more customers are saying, this is good. However, Burger King and their convenience of their whole system of ordering and picking up your order or getting it brought to a table, etc., it's not increasing. It's positive, but it's not increasing. It's declining. So when the category is placing more of an emphasis on convenience, and this contributes to greater revenue, Burger King is declining in convenience. That's a lost opportunity. So is their taste, so is CFA's burger, so is the meat-free offering from Chick-fil-A. Those are lost revenue opportunities. They're counter to the overall trend, although they're positive. Very quickly now, we can sum this up and just look at the quadrants and say, well, if you're able to move what is slightly negative to be positive, that's low-hanging fruit. You probably could market your way to success. You don't have to do too much operations and system changes to improve McDonald's convenience. You could probably just speak about it slightly better, advertise it differently, make it more accessible to people in their mind, the availability, remove any cognitive dissonance, and you could get above the line. The beauty of social media is that you can actually deep dive each and every one of these and say, well, what exactly about McDonald's convenience is hurting it the most? And therefore understand exactly what to address. Lastly, on this slide, I want to just look at cost. And we see here that cost is an increasing trend, across the board for QSR restaurants. It's going to be something that determines revenue, but for all of them within our set, our competitive set here, it's negative. In other words, cost is a problem right now for QSR. People are saying this is not good, and it's becoming more important. What opportunity this provides is the QSR restaurant that can crack the code on the value equation right now and position themselves for the future as this only gets worse is going to be a real winner. Now, you might say that's fairly obvious, and it is obvious. If you take a step back and just think about global recession, the pressure of inflation, and the function and nature of QSR and the need, the financial need state that it fits into, yes, this is obvious, but it's nice to have some data to back it up. It's good to see that also amongst your competitors, none of you have cracked it yet, so the prize is still out there. And the last slide that we're going to look at is decreasing trends. And this shows us risk of investment, potentially harmful practices, poor category management, and where we need to plan responses. So firstly, risky areas of investment. Where a brand is increasing and the rest of the category is declining, or its contribution to revenue is declining, should you really be seeing this increase? If a organization is actively pursuing this and investing into it, then a critical evaluation is required, because you really have to be sure when the category is seeing less and less value out of this, we're spending money in it. Is that a place you want to spend money? And this is true for any brand and any category. You can do the same exercise and figure out exactly, am I investing in the right places or the wrong places? Because that's what decision intelligence is all about. We come along here and we see increasingly negative trends counter the category's revenue equation. So McDonald's and their health offering, for example, that really requires some deep work and thinking. What's going on there? Why is that not positive? Why is it increasing and negative? That's not great. That's really something to be aware of. That could actually harm your brand quite significantly. If we jump over here, we can just see perhaps what I've labeled maybe harshly poor category management. In other words, we've got declining trends, but a negative reflection on each individual company. And then the top left-hand side, you might say, wow, almost everything's in there, but that's how it should be. The category is declining, the key brands are declining, and so you see there's a synergy, and that makes sense. Basically, in QSR, the occasion-based model is falling apart. That's what this tells us. It says to us, you know what, since COVID, people are working from home more, people are traveling into the work at different times, and that sort of thing. The discrete breakfast, lunch, and dinner occasion is not so discrete anymore. Things are rather, based on what we see here, convenient. And this is a general learning that you could probably take and extrapolate into many industries. Convenience is on the rise, discrete occasions are going to decrease, and probably not come back again in the near future. So although there are many other diagnostics and trends and things we can look at from this data, I hope that just by overlaying the revenue and what contributes to revenue against each brand's own effort has been thought-provoking, especially around the decisions we make. So what can we take out of this? Trying to generalize a little bit for all of us who have watched this and been part of this presentation. So number one, we've reduced the amount of data we look at for a decision. You notice how there was distinctly not 100 metrics or 100 different ways of looking at something. Rather, we tried to represent the data with respect to revenue, increasing revenue or decreasing revenue, and then put it into a very simple quadrant so that we're able to see, this is helping, this isn't helping. We also understood the minimum required effort to play in a category. So in other words, what do we have to do well today? We then saw where the category is heading. So what are the likely benefits demanded in the future? And therefore, what should we be planning for? So in other words, I have my brand plan for today, the values, the action, the offering. I have an idea of what my brand plan should be for tomorrow. We also ensured that each brand attribute was a tangible asset. In other words, by linking your meat-free offering back to the ROI, its return on investment, it's now an asset. So how much you invest into your meat-free offering, although it's a part of your brand and your product offering, it actually exists and stands on its own. And that can be true of everything, your convenience, your system, your call center. They all become separate assets, broken out, no longer confused with the overarching mother brand. And that then becomes one large intangible asset on the balance sheet. And then lastly, what we didn't get to show you today, but what's available is to simulate your actions. What if you were to move? What if you were KFC and you moved your taste above the line? How much revenue can you expect to get from that? And so with that, I will end the presentation portion and we can head back to any questions.
Thanks so much, Brad. That was great. Really appreciate the time you took. We have just a couple minutes for Q&A, not too long, but if anybody's having questions they were holding to the end, please pop those in the chat now. We have one question from Sarah. She typed this while you were talking about the increasing trends and kind of comparing fast food restaurants. And she said, is it possible that convenience isn't the right wording and maybe it refers more to stores close by? And she wanted to know how our category is defined.
Mm-hmm. So we actually have another variable which wasn't on that chart called location, and that fulfills exactly what you're saying, Sarah. So very, very good question. We do have to make sure that terms are what they are. And in this case, because we are using text analytics and building these up to conceptually represent what we want, that really is convenience. This actually comes from a CX module that we developed where it's all about your system IQ. In other words, how does your system function and the process that people go through to get the product and to experience what you're trying to deliver.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Hopefully that answers your question, Sarah. And because we're just short on time here, can you just kind of talk about how somebody who's seen this platform for the first time, you know, how is your platform different from like a traditional brand health tracking?
Mm-hmm. So a traditional brand health tracker will ask a consumer or a respondent, you know, what do you think about this? Or what's the level of association? And that's all about today. And often what happens with a brand health tracker is that that's where it stops. It ends up being diagnostic. It ends up sitting in a space of this is what is represented today. The difference for us and what we're offering is that we're saying we apply a lot of time and effort to understand the trend over time, a lot of longitudinal data, often stretching back 5 years, and then create robust predictions forward. And then not only do we project each of these forward, we tie it all to revenue. So it's quite different. A brand health tracker will give you a metric and say your brand health score, your brand love, etc., is A, B, or C. Whereas what we're saying is actually the influence of this attribute is 10 million in revenue or 50 million in revenue. And so we reduce everything to that common denominator so that everyone can play the same game and really understand how their efforts are impacting the business.
That's awesome. Thank you for breaking that down a bit. Always nice to hear you're bringing it into the real world, right? Making it quantifiable and not just a hypothetical kind of measuring metric. Well, thanks so much, Brad. We were right at the end of time here. If anybody has any more questions, you know, feel free to get in touch with Brad afterwards. And if you tuned in a little late and want to catch the beginning of the session, it'll be available on demand as soon as I hit the end button. So thanks, Brad, and I'll see everyone in the next session.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.